Following is the how-to video on how to put your reusable bag together. So first we're going to work with these larger strips. You should have 3 of them, and you can lay them out in any order that you would like. We're going to pin the long edges of 2 that you want to be next to each other together. Make sure that you line up those long edges and stick pins in them. Then we're going to start sewing. You are going to put the edge of the fabric on the right edge of your presser foot and pull out the pins as you go. Make sure that you reverse stitch for about 3 or 4 stitches at the beginning and end. Once you have that done, we can come back to the ironing board and iron these open like so. And we want this selvage, which is our seam allowance, to be folded over towards the dark side fabric. Now we're going to do the same thing with this last piece. Go ahead and put it next to the color that you want it to be next to, and then pin it in place, and then go ahead and sew it together. Once that's done, we'll go ahead and iron it again, making sure that you get that seam allowance pressed to the dark color. Now we're going to make our straps. Go ahead and take these 2 little pieces and fold in half, hot dog style, so they go all the way the lengthways. Open them back up, and then we're going to fold each raw edge into this center crease line that we just made with the iron. Make sure that you get these ironed down really good because we want them to be folded pretty much as good as paper. Go ahead and fold that second side in, and then once you get both of these sides pressed down real good, we're just going to fold over one time in half again, and that's going to encase those raw edges so that no fraying happens. Let's put a few pins along here so that that doesn't move while we start to sew it, and then go ahead and do the same process with your second strap piece. Once you get all of that ironed and pinned, we're going to go sew this on our sewing machine. You're going to want to go a little bit closer to the edge with your sewing machine needle than we did before. So you're going to want to put the edge of that a little bit underneath the right side of the presser foot, not quite on the edge of it, and that just helps us get all edges that we pressed under and make sure that everything's finished. On these, you do not have to reverse stitch at the beginning and end if you don't want to, but everything else we do today you'll want to. Make sure that you trim all of those threads. Now here we're going to take this big piece that we had and find the center of the long edge. Now this is the center of the side that I want to be the top, so make sure that you find the center of the side that you want to be the top of the bag. Then you're going to measure 2.5 inches in on each side and pin these up top. Make sure that you don't twist that. This is how you should make sure that your strap is not twisted. Try and fold it the way that I just showed you. That way you don't end up with a twisted strap. So go ahead and do the same thing over here with the second one. 2.5 inches from each side. Make sure that this one isn't twisted either. Then we are going to open this back up and take our large lining piece. Make sure that when you put these together, the right sides of the fabrics are facing each other. So the sides that you want to see when the piece is finished should be facing each other. And then now we are going to sew along here, just over the top of all of these layers. You will reverse stitch at the beginning and end, and go ahead and line the right side of this fabric up with the right side of your presser foot again. Once this is done, we're back at the ironing board, and we're just going to open this up and iron it flat. And then we are going to fold the whole thing hot dog style, and make sure that we line up all of these little seams so that the stripes are not crooked once we get everything done. So we're going to pin on these seam lines first, and then once you pin on the seam lines, you're going to also make sure that you don't accidentally pin so that those straps are in where you're going to sew, because you don't want to accidentally catch those with the sewing machine. Go ahead and continue lining up the edges all the way around all 3 of these edges. Once you get to the bottom edge of your lining piece, your last pin is going to go about a hand's width away from the fold and put in a backwards pin, because that's where we're going to know that we're going to stop sewing. So start at the beginning at the fold of the outside, and then once you get to the corner, you're going to sew until you're almost to the edge of the fabric. Stop, put down your needle, and then pick up the presser foot, and you can just pivot the fabric around and make a nice square corner seam. That way you don't have to stop sewing and then start again in order to get that corner sewn. You're going to do that again at this next corner, and then when you come around and get to that backwards pin, you're going to stop and reverse stitch, and then you are done. Once you trim your threads, stick your hand inside that hole that you left in the lining and turn the whole bag inside out, and then use your finger to poke out all the corners of the bags. We're going to finish with the iron here in this hole opening. We're going to have to fold under these raw edges about the width here. So fold over the width of that seam allowance and then sandwich them together. I'm going to hold it with my finger and then press it down with the iron so that it stays in place. Once you get it pressed, go ahead and put a couple pins in there, and then it should look like this on the inside. Make sure that it's not too skinny, otherwise when we sew it together you will not fill that hole in, you will miss the raw edges, so make sure that you've made it fat enough. So once you pin it in, we're going to sew along the bottom here a little bit closer to the edge, kind of like we did with the handles. You only have to go as long as the hole is, but I went all the way, and then you're going to want to check and make sure that you got both edges of that. Then you can go ahead and shove the lining inside of the bag, and there you go, you've got a nice bag. If you want to, you can go ahead and iron this top part down so that it lies flat. Enjoy!